Welcome to Lesson 7 for our Outdoor Ed class, Survival Kits. Now, survival kits do not need to be just for wilderness situations, but just about any situation you might find yourself in. A survival kit is obviously to help you survive any unexpected situation that you find yourself in. This changes from environment and place, so every survival kit is going to be different. Keep in mind the rule of 3. What threats are you most likely to face? Are you most likely going to need shelter, water, or food? And when would you be likely to face those threats? Your kit should be adjusted with these considerations. Good survival kits have a few similar traits. First of all, they need to be small enough for you to actually bring along. If they are too bulky for you to make it easy to leave them behind, they will not help you in a survival situation if they're not there. On the other hand, they need to be large enough to hold the essential elements that you will need in your particular situation. Any of those items that would increase your chances of survival in an emergency. There is no one perfect survival kit that will match every situation. Every different environment or season will require different items. For instance, as you look in that top picture, you can see in that desert environment, your main concern would be heat and water. Whereas in the bottom picture, your main concerns would be cold and shelter. Besides different environments, there are different situations that you may get yourself into. For instance, hiking or snowshoeing, cross-country skiing will bring you into different situations than if you were going on a cross-country road trip through difficult weather, or if you were taking all-terrain vehicles such as snowmobiles into remote environments. Each of these different situations will require different items and different capabilities. For instance, when you are hiking, you will probably want to carry fewer items than if you were driving cross country. Yet you will be less stranded in a hiking situation probably than in a snowmobile situation. If we use our example from our first lesson, Snowmobile Joe, whose snowmobile has broken down from 15 miles from help, but there's only 3 hours of daylight left. It's 0 degrees and dropping. Consider for a moment, what would Joe really want right now? What items would be of the most use and help give Joe the best chance of surviving? If you think about it, Joe would probably need items to help him build shelter and start a fire to keep himself warm through the first 3 hours. Remember the rule of 3. This is his most immediate threat. Even though there are many survival kits for many situations and environments, there are many common items in each of these kits. For instance, if your kit is contained in a metal can, that metal can can be used as an emergency pot for boiling water. A small multi-tool or knife is obviously useful in nearly every situation. Fire is useful in many situations, but sometimes matches may not be enough. You may also need tinder to start a fire, or if your environments have much good tinder, a flint and steel can be more reliable than matches. Rope is very handy for creating shelters, repairing clothing, or creating tools needed to survive. Many kits have a few medical supplies in them, such as band-aids, but you need to consider whether or not these little bits of medical supplies will actually increase your potential of survival. If not, they are just taking up necessary space. A candle can provide heat, but it can also be a very effective means as starting a fire, and that is probably its best use. Nails will prove very handy in creating shelters or having something to tie rope off to. Mylar emergency blankets reflect 90% of body heat back to the person. This makes them an excellent addition to any survival kit and a basis for shelters. When someone sweats, they lose salt. But unfortunately, salt is very hard to find in nature. This makes some salt or even a bouillon packet a great addition to a survival kit. Food is a pretty far down item in the list of 3, but still it might make sense to pack some sort of emergency rations. These can come in many forms, including chocolate bars or, as I've seen in some stores, blocks of emergency rations that are essentially a big wad of fat and carry a lot of calories. Where pure water might be scarce, adding some sort of water purification tablets or iodine or potassium permanganate will help you to purify some water for emergency use. Some bright colored flagging tape will be great for making your campsite or another area such as your direction of travel much more visible to rescuers. Can also be used as an emergency form of rope. Signal mirrors and whistles are excellent ways to try to alert rescuers to your position. Signal mirrors, for instance, can be seen for miles, especially aircraft. A compass will, of course, keep you headed in the right direction and keep you from being turned around in a wilderness situation. Some survival kits that plan for long-term survival situations include fishing gear and snare wire, but this is usually not too important unless someone knows how to use them and is intending on being lost for a long time. In the classroom, we worked on this exercise where we had a large number of items on a table and students were able to pick out various items that they thought would fit each situation the best. Please read each situation and think of what items would be most useful. In a car situation, one factor to consider is the fact that you probably have more than enough room to pack some bulky items. Also, the car will be your most likely source of shelter. Packing items to keep warm inside of a car would be most useful. Common items for a car emergency kit are a sleeping bag, some emergency rations such as chocolate bars, and a candle to keep the interior of the car warm. A snowmobile will have an increased capacity to carry things compared to walking, but less so than a car. Plus, your needs for shelter and warmth are probably more acute. An emergency blanket, basic rations, some basic tools, as well as some fire starting materials may be good items to consider in this situation. A foot travel type situation, such as snowshoeing or hiking, is a very common survival situation. Students will need to bring a survival kit of this type to our winter camp. This will need to be small enough to pack into a pocket. Consider what items you would need in your survival kit. Keep in mind that there is only so much space, and some hard choices will need to be made.
Okay, so I thought I'd show you what my survival kit is. Unfortunately, I don't have a good metal container because we live in a plastic world, but this good Ziploc thing here is still small enough to fit in a pocket. A rubber band to help keep it closed, and I imagine a rubber band could be handy in a survival situation. So here, for my salt, I have just a ramen noodle packet. In order to, your daily requirement would be like 1/8 of a teaspoon of this. So this little packet could still last for a long time. Now, duct tape. When isn't duct tape handy? I took about 10 feet and then just rolled it in a small packet, nice compact, and you can unroll it if needed. Here's a matchbox, but it doesn't actually hold matches. What I have in here is actually some cotton balls with some Vaseline in them, and that acts as tinder. And then here I have some matches. I actually have the wrong matches in here. I have some waterproof matches that I dipped in wax, some waterproof strike area matches. And those are the matches that are supposed to be in here. I have about 10 feet of rope just rolled up, and this is good 200-pound rope, so decent enough. The stub of a candle. Again, this would probably be best to help start a fire, not as a night light. And here is a small knife. In order to save space, I took off a belt clip that was on this thing. I just need to unscrew that screw and take off the belt clip, and that saved a significant amount of space in the survival kit. But it's still a pretty sturdy knife, and should be good for a lot of different uses, locking blade and all that. Then we have a few nails, just small ones, but ones that I could probably pound in with the knife, and I could tie a rope off to that. And then there's my emergency blanket. And this would be the basis of a shelter. It's 7 feet long. I could use it as the start of a tent or just a sleeping bag, depending on conditions. It won't last long, but it packs down really tight and probably keep you alive for a day. And again, the plastic container, I could probably dip water into this. I won't be able to boil water or cook with this. So if you find a metal container that could do that, that'd be great. But the most important point is that this all fits in. This will keep me alive for a day, and it'll fit in my pocket. Okay, great.